Good evening. It's good to be back, folks. Two launches, 2 days, two hemispheres. Rocket Lab beats their own launch record. Russia is building a new space station that some people say they could dominate the Earth. Well, let's see how true that is. We're also on the other side of it. We're going to take a look about how small sats could help the U.S. win the new space race. The first Gen 3 Starship booster damaged in testing. How far will that set them back? Stoke Space is just moving fast and furious. They claim they want to solve the only launch problem that moves the needle. We'll tell you what that is. There's a startup that wants to blot out the sun to reverse global warming. We're going to have some fun with that one. And Starlab secures an investment from Jonas Henderson. That's a big deal. We'll try to figure out how much it is. They don't really say. All that with our guest, Tom Marotta. From the news desk at the Center for Space Commerce and Finance, my name is Thomas Andrew Olson, and this is The Unknown Quality. As you know, this program is hosted by the Center for Space Commerce and Finance. And what do? We, of course, as we always do, champion and strengthen emerging space startups, space-adjacent enterprises worldwide through advisory, access, and advocacy, most of all. Our pitch events and world-class boot camps fortify startups to be better investor-ready. Now, a lot of our work, especially this podcast, is supported by our listeners and fans like you. So just go to cscf.space/support and click that plain as day donate button. A little in the tip jar each month makes a big difference. And now joining me is my almost longest space friend, Michael Lane, who just finished polishing his treasure vase. He's here with us. Come on in.
Hey,
and you polished your face as well. What the hell happened there? Yeah.
Yeah, I usually around my birthday, around November sometime, I tend to shave it off. You know, I've kept a beard for most of the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. I'm like, maybe it's time to go legit. Maybe it's time to I don't know. I haven't decided whether I'm going to keep it like this or not. I'm still
okay. Well, I guess I'll put you on the list to get you some beef tallow for Christmas.
And you, how are you doing? Glad to have you back.
I'm glad to be back. I was, as you know, I was taking care of a sick friend down in Vero Beach, and his poor internet just couldn't cut it. You know, ironically, just the next morning after the Thursday show, it was all fixed.
Oh,
at lasting bandwidth. So I was like, damn, 12 hours sooner, and I would have been there.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. So there you go. But
well, glad to have you back. And you got to take care of the family. You got to take care of the friends. Like
you got to do what you got to do.
Got to be right.
Useful in the universe.
Yep.
Yep. Anyway, what should we start with? I've got all sorts of stuff here.
Yeah.
Let's start with. I liked it. It was Rocket Lab. They beat their own record this year.
Always love Rocket Lab.
But I love that 2 launches, 2 days, and 2 hemispheres. I guess those would be northern and southern, not eastern and western.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
2 launches in 2 days. They're gonna be up there. They're looking like they're trying to start competing with SpaceX. They want to start doing that launch rate.
Yeah, right. That cadence is key.
If they got people paying them to do it, now good for them.
Yeah. I'm a fan of these kids, right? They're doing good work. They're it's important to recognize that this is a press release from Rocket Lab, so they're all very best things. But you know,
Right.
gotta love 18 Electron launches in 2025 with 100% mission success. So take the wins, y'all. Take the wins.
Absolutely, absolutely, and good for
Yeah.
them. Um, I see Aiden is with us. Glad
Hey.
to see you
Yeah.
here. So cool, cool. Glad to have you. Um, we'll see. I don't know. Where's Morty these days? He's still in Japan, or
He's still in Japan. He's supposed to get back, I think today or tonight or tomorrow.
okay,
I'm technically supposed to have a meeting with him tomorrow, um, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
okay. So we're already getting questions from Aiden of the Blue Origin launch from last week. I don't know if we want
We
to take this take that stuff now, or
No, I might as well take it now. Yeah, we talked about it a lot last week, so definitely want to catch that show. But last week and the week before, I think it was Thursday and the Thursday before. I think it's great. I think they've announced some other stuff. They just announced a new heat shield that is gigantic. So I think that's a big deal. And as soon as they finished the one launch, they came back with, we've got a bigger, better rocket on the drawing pad that jumps their cargo capacity from 45 tons to 70 tons. So you know, I said last week and the week before, like Blue is my favorite launch company. They always have been. And it's kind of like rooting for your home team when they kind of suck a little bit. You still root for them.
yeah,
But I love these guys, and
like the Cubs.
I think it's great.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Oh well, here's the thing though. I want to ask about that one since we're here. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
so this new design is that going to be the new Armstrong? Are they going with that nomenclature still?
I mean, they're still using that nomenclature. I don't think this is new Armstrong. I think this is just a bigger, better new Glenn.
Okay.
I think that their branding is not as great as SpaceX's, but they're pretty good at that stuff. I think they would have said that if that's what it was. But I
Well, we
don't think
also
it.
see now with them two competing philosophies of engine design.
Yep.
So now you're seeing the ones that they're using, and you're seeing what Starship is using, and they're two
Well,
completely different engine philosophies.
you could go farther because we talked about Stoke last week as well while you were
Yeah.
out. So that's a third, right?
Mhm.
And that's what we're going to talk about that here more this evening as well. But
Yep. Yep.
yeah, that's a third. So yeah,
Okay. Next
competition's
up,
good.
Russia supposedly announced a new Roscosmos announced a new space station design that the Russians are going to build, and some pundits are saying, "Hey, this could be a game changer. It could dominate the world." Blah blah blah. I think one of the reasons is that thing is expected to have a polar orbit,
Right.
so it'll be able to see everything, everywhere, every day.
I, you know, if it mimics other prior space stations, that's an orbit every 90 minutes. They can see the world every 90 minutes, top and bottom. And then the world spins underneath them, so they'll just get a crisscross of that. But I do think that's really interesting. Certainly the design is cool. Certainly the idea is cool. But let me ask you a blunt question. Can Russia today pull this off? I think no.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure if they can or not. Depends on how much legacy capacity they could bring to bear on this. If they're using the standard stuff they've been using for 50 years, Soyuz and their standard
Sure.
launchers, and they can knock those out from a factory the way Musk does. Maybe not quite as fast, but so it
But
depends on the size of the modules and what you're putting together, because we don't really know much given this announcement. It almost looks like a press release.
yeah, right. It's they made their own announcements 3 or 4, 5 years ago about their own lunar missions. And then they, in my opinion, caved and sucked into the Chinese program, the ILRS,
Yep.
International Lunar Research Station. Hasn't been a lot of talk about ILRS. They've completely abandoned their own lunar mission. So that's 2 out of 3 missions that they're like, this is what we're going to do, and then they haven't done anything. So I really am a little skeptical, and I think their invasion of Ukraine has backfired at such a level that if they're not careful, they're going to be a vassal state of China. So I don't think they have the capacity, not from what I read in the news. So I'd be really surprised.
For what I've been reading about the economic stuff going on in China right now, China may end up being a vassal state of themselves. Because a lot of they're putting on new regulatory stuff, and they're making lots of demands off their industry, and trying to maintain that trade balance with us the way they've been doing. We're pushing back on that, and now it turns out a whole bunch of companies that don't want to talk about it are actually moving out of China. They're moving to Vietnam. They're moving to other places, and they're getting around tariff rules. They're getting around all sorts of regulations. Yeah. And there's a lot more probably doing that than are willing to admit. And that's going to create some shakeups on the home front in the mainland that they're not going to talk about with us anytime soon.
No. So back to Russia. I don't know that I feel like I would love it. I think the world needs more space stations. I do. I think the world needs more space stations. So I would welcome them back to the kind of the global partnership of space development, but I remain skeptical. Yeah, I do.
Well, if they could ever get that war behind them and get that done, I don't know who's going to come up with the solution, but sooner or later a solution must be found.
Right.
Even if we don't like it, whatever it is, it's got to happen because it's nuts.
I 100% support the Ukrainians on this one. So hopefully they figure that out and drag those punks back. All right. I did not read this article about how small sats can help the U.S. win the space race.
Well, there's a big caveat in that article.
Okay.
I was just looking at it a little bit ago, and it really profiles a private company who's like working with a bunch of satellite companies, and the small sats in many ways do have some advantages over the larger ones, and they're so cheap to launch. The problem is they're so close to the ground, the drag hits them easily, and you lose them a little more quickly than you'd like. They're coming up with a new fuel solution so they can keep themselves boosted out of the atmospheric drag longer. That's really what the article's about.
Okay.
And they came up with something. They've tested it in the lab, and they're company called Petro, and it's also being launched. It's being paid for, at least in part, by DARPA.
Cool. I don't know how that helps us win the space race, but that's certainly great tech for small sats.
Which space race are we talking about is really the issue, and that's not really clear from what I'm reading.
We just closed it off, but the article we just had was basically the pundit was saying that America is losing the space race. We don't even know we're in. So in that case, they were talking about space stations, space race.
Yeah.
But
I guess what they're doing is they've got there's some fundamental knowledge about propellant that we don't have.
Okay.
And some of these novel chemicals behave well in an electric rocket, and they're playing with that kind of stuff. And so that's they're trying to figure out a core problem that in total holds all the tech back. And so I guess they had a drop in funding for a while, and now they're trying to get that back. but they got to invest in these new solutions, and that's what they're saying. We fall behind if we don't get more high-end stuff like this.
All right. Well, fingers crossed on a new technological solution. This is what she said. I think it's important to acknowledge the impact that fundamental research has, because that can get lost when we're trying to really frantically come up with new technology solutions.
Yep.
If you don't answer the fundamental questions, you're never going to understand the core problem that's holding your technology back. So it's a good quote. I like that.
It's good. Yeah. They're quoting us. We've been saying that stuff for years.
We have been. It's nice when smart people mimic us.
So let's get to Stoke, because Stoke, I mean, they just got a whole crap ton of funding that's not that long ago.
Yeah.
And now they're going to spend it all. They're all in now because in their view, nothing else matters but full and rapid rocket reuse. Yep. And so in their world, that's the only thing that moves the needle in this industry. And they're all in.
Yep. I love these guys. I love them. They're in my backyard. They're good people. They're not orbital yet, right? They've gotten a lot of money and a lot of, let's say, credit from the industry. They're the right team.
Mm-hmm.
But at what point do they actually go to the sky and more than hop tests? Like, I love hop tests. I'm glad to see it. Glad to see Honda a couple months ago do it. Glad to see these guys do it. But how much until they're flying?
Yeah.
And how much time do they have?
Right. Well, this is what he said. It was he was asked about that. Andy Lapsa and Tom Feldman were, they just founded this company 5 years ago. And he said, that was a huge question in my head. Does the world really need a 151st rocket company? And in order for me to say yes to that question, I had to very systematically go through all the other players, think about the economics of launch, about the business plan, the evolution over time. And so it's very non-intuitive for him to get to start another launch company. And they spent most of a long time, especially in 2020, they worked on a basic design that they now call Nova. They zeroed in on Canaveral, where the majority of launch companies and customers are, as well as the talent to assemble and launch rockets. They learned in 2021 that the Space Force was going to lease an old pad, Complex 14, to a commercial company. And so they were trying to get a hold of that too. And they actually won. The competition opened in 2021, and a year later, they won the lease to launch Space Launch Complex 14. So that's where we're going to be working. It's still a long ways to go. And they talk about the tech of launch too in this thing. So if you skip a little bit, so if the pad is finally coming into shape, hey, how's that rocket doing?
Right.
Well, they have a test site at Moses Lake in Central Washington, and they shipped a full-scale version of its second stage, and they did qualification testing, and so, which means putting cryogenic fuels in there multiple times, pressurized, put through their paces, and that went well. And they said they'd built a stubby version of its first stage. I haven't heard about anything about launch dates or when they're going to ship these test stages actually to the Cape. So,
right.
But they say they're not shooting for the moon. They're shooting for something a million times farther.
I like that idea. Yeah. It's an interesting company. This is the only space company that I know that has 500 million in the checking account that has not gone to space.
Right.
So there's a lot of people believing heavy into this thing.
The pressure's on now, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, credit where it's due when they have a launch pad, great. But that feels like a strange priority, a shift of priorities. But they're smart guys, so I just assume it's gonna work for a while.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I have is go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, no, I was going to say the next thing up is the first next generation Starship booster was actually damaged in testing. And Jeff Faust wrote this, and now I can't find the thing. I don't know if you can get to that article because they're not letting me get onto Space News without, putting something in the kitty.
I hit the paywall also. I don't know that there's anything more to say about this other than it happened. It's going to play. We don't really know.
Something ripped open. I understand.
Yeah.
A crack ripped open in it or something. And stuff went leaking out. So.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, that was going to be their next launch, so I don't know how far back that puts it.
Yeah. Nope. I don't think anybody knows right now. All right, let's move on to the next one because that one's going to be interesting.
The geoengineering?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Where am I here? Where is it? What do I have?
Well, let's talk about what geoengineering is, right? From deconstructing the word, it's an engineering project so big that it changes the world,
right?
And that is the point of it, right? And there are not very many of those. You could argue that the Suez Canal did that, the Panama Canal did that, but those are like localized projects that had international implications. What these folks are doing is actual, not figurative, actually blocking down the sun and turning down the planet's thermostat. That's insane. And I've been hearing about this idea for at least 10 years, and there's different flavors of it. There's two that are in space. Our friend Rick Tomlinson's a part of one of those teams.
That does not surprise me.
And a long ago competitor of mine, David Shawm, we're not competitors anymore, we're friends, has got a startup team that is trying to do the same thing. They have different space-based plans, but then these guys, and there's a couple others. There's some folks that tried this down in Mexico, either the beginning of this year or the end of last year. But this is a really long article about a new entrant that I had not heard of called Stardust.
Mm-hmm.
Stardust has $75 million in funding. They're not doing a space project. They're going to the stratosphere, and they're going to inject aerosols into the atmosphere to cool down the sun as it hits the earth. All right, so that's the background. What do you have to say about it?
Oh, me? Oh my God! I just think there's nothing on that scale that that sitting and waiting just to see what's going on a little bit, maybe almost forever, might be okay. I'm sorry. It's just like, okay, first you have to think that, yes, our Earth is in complete danger of burning into a cinder and falling into the sun, 5 years from now if we don't do this. And nothing I read, nothing I see, I have a science and engineering background. I read this stuff all the time on every side of it. And it's just like, I am not convinced. Even Bill Gates isn't convinced anymore. Whatever warming we're suffering from is civilization ending. Especially when I read this week that certain currents near Antarctica are starting to shift around and not be what they used to be, which means that the Earth could, as a result of that, the Earth could actually get a little cooler. Because the last 6 million years, our default condition has been ice age.
Right. I don't want to debate climate change on this
Yeah.
show, right? We're supposed to be talking about the money in space, but
Yeah.
this
Of course
one
not.
is kind of money in space adjacent.
My only point from that was that
Yeah.
there's so much debate going on
Right.
that a project of this kind doesn't make economic sense right now. And they're
I
attracting money. And so that's the raising question. Who are they getting their money from? What's their agenda?
$75
That's a
million
lot
dollars.
for a
All
startup.
right, here I'm just gonna go ahead and read this.
Sure.
Stardust, the company, Stardust has been moving full speed ahead. In October, the company announced a fundraising milestone. It had secured $60 million from funds linked to, among others, Silicon Valley luminaries and an Italian industrial dynasty, bringing the total amount raised by the 2-year-old startup to $75 million. That is astounding. I can't imagine what the pitch deck of this looks like. How do they make money? It's like extort the world for revenue. I just somehow they convinced Silicon Valley, amongst others. I don't know how you get an Italian dynasty family to join your project. That makes me question things. But it's like, okay, if they can do it, elevators on the moon seem much more possible.
Absolutely.
Stratospheric communication systems seem much more possible. I don't know.
Huge global funds to build space companies like the kind you and I envisioned 25 years ago could still happen. Or I get too old.
Yeah, it was kind of boggling. It's a very long article. There is a lot of nuance in this thing. I don't think we need to go into it because it does kind of like push us off our normal topics. But I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was worth bringing up.
Yep, and if you're watching here tonight, I think Doug Plata and Jay Cathari have some excellent comments. Anyway, do you want to shall we just move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
We have a guest, and he's waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have an update tonight. It's an interesting thing. It's back on our topic of what do we do about launch capacity and where do we put it and how do we get it off the ground. And as we've said many, many times on this program, there's way more demand for launch facility capacity than we have available supply right now. And our guest tonight, he's back with us a second time. He's one of the few out there that's actually doing something about it. And his name is Tom Marotta. He's CEO and founder of the Spaceport Company, leading the team that is building distributed launch infrastructure on mobile offshore platforms, hint, hint, to solve the problem of growing spaceport congestion. He also led the team that achieved the first ever FAA Part 450 launch license. And he's also an award-winning co-author of The High Frontier and Easier Way. And he's a co-founder, I didn't know this, of the Beyond Earth Institute. Tom Marotta, welcome back, man.
Thanks for having me. Great to be back.
Yeah,
hey.
Great.
So, Michael, you cut your beard off just as I'm growing a mustache. So we're like ships passing in the night here. At least Olsen still has his beard. Looking good, man.
Yeah. Trademark. It's the goatee and the hat. That's his.
It's the hat. Yeah.
We're gonna trademark.
Well, the hat covers a multitude of sins, so they're in my case.
Well, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me. Last time I was here, Olsen, you weren't here, but the time went by really quick. So thank you for the invitation, and excited to dive in here.
Okay, absolutely. So let's get down to it. I mean, you're building something. You're basically building launch platforms out at sea.
Yeah. So prior to starting the Spaceport Company, I worked at Astra. I worked at a rocket company, and I lived the pain of trying to find cost-effective, reliable, predictable launch pad access. In the United States alone, we have a number of spaceports. There's 14 FAA licensed spaceports, not counting the federal ranges and not counting the exclusive sites like Brownsville, Boca Chica, which can only be used by SpaceX. And so when we were at Astra, my bosses came to me and said, "Hey, we need your help in trying to find enough launch pads to launch a rocket theoretically every day." That was the plan. And we threw all the spaghetti at the wall, examined a lot of options, and eventually decided the least worst option was to wait in line at Cape Canaveral. The folks at Cape Canaveral, the teams there, have done a great job at shoving more capacity into a site. But if you go down what used to be Missile Row, you mentioned, Stoke, Blue Origin, a lot of new and established companies have taken up all the real estate. There is they're talking about chopping up the SpaceX landing pads for a couple of new sites. The federal government has been trying for years to force launch companies to share pads. The customers do not want to do that.
No,
we tried to convince them to do that on a boat. When I was at the FAA for 5 years, I was in many meetings where there was talk of multi-user sites. That was the phrase. It really makes it challenging when one vehicle has a certain propellant. Other vehicles, even if vehicles have the same propellant, kerosene and LOX, for instance, very very common biprop combination. They might be at different pressures. They might use different loading. It's just very challenging, and frankly not cost effective for different vehicles to share sites. So we have a real estate problem. Ultimately, was what it boils down to. So started the spaceport company to try and create more supply, more launch pad supply. In 2022, when we started the spaceport company, there was a lot more demand for orbital launch than there is today. SpaceX has really consolidated a lot of the industry, and we've seen Virgin exit the industry. Other companies have kind of are going through a transition, like Astra and ABL and others. But what has really ramped up is the suborbital market, and I don't know if you guys really talk about that a lot, but same supply demand imbalance we see in the orbital market is even more pronounced in missile testing, sounding rockets, target rockets, and hypersonic testing is the big one. There's a lot of enthusiasm around hypersonic testing, and this is all suborbital. I mean, they go high, they go far, but they don't reach orbit. And finding a place to mature low TRL or medium TRL hypersonic systems has proven to be really challenging. And so we have found a niche in serving those suborbital things. If you'd have told me 4 years ago when we started the company, I'd have orbital business, I'd say, oh, that's stupid. Here we are.
But go back to the article a moment ago with Stoke, right? When he started in 2020, there were 150 space launch companies, right? Our friend Michael Mealing at Space Fund, and separately Megan Crawford at Megan's at Space Fund and Michael Mealing's at Starbridge. They've been tracking 150 companies. So when you started, that was a real expectation that you'd have this whole industry. So,
but I agree with Stokes. I agree with Lapsa's thesis, and I disagree with Megan and Michael. I think there are niches for orbital launch companies to find, and the proof is in the pudding. Rocket Lab has successful found niches, and Peter Beck, I wouldn't bet against him. Now they are moving up to a larger rocket, but Electron is not going away because they found little corners of the market to go into, and that's a sign of the maturation in the launch market. Not everything is going to go to orbit on a 10 metric ton, 300 foot tall kind of Falcon 9 looking rocket or Atlas 5 looking rocket. There's going to be times where you need to hit weird inclinations that you can't hit from Cape Canaveral, or there's going to be times where it's cost effective and profitable to pay the premium for a small launcher. I mean, Firefly is also making a go of it. I don't think Firefly is as far along as Rocket Lab, but they're getting there. And so we're clearly seeing sort of a diversification in the launch market, similar to what we see in aviation or other forms of transportation. Amazon doesn't deliver packages to your house on a tractor trailer typically. They use a type of vehicle that makes sense for that trip. Not quite to that level of diversification in the launch industry, but we're starting to see it, and Rocket Lab is the proof of that.
You think it's going to be small launches, suborbital? Have you started to see any of the Golden Dome money flowing your direction? It hasn't started flowing yet, right?
It hasn't started flowing, but the Missile Defense Agency has started awarding small Golden Dome related contracts. There's a contractual vehicle. The acronym is SHIELD. I forget what it is, and it's an indefinite quantity, indefinite amount sort of contract. So very small amounts of money. I think they're starting to lay the contractual groundwork for Golden Dome. But the big dollars have not yet started to be spent. We don't even know the plan yet, right? The president told the Golden Dome czar, I think it's General Gutlein, you have to correct me on that, but some Air Force general, Space Force general, they said, all right, you have 120 days to put a plan together. And I think the Senate, Congress received that plan. It was a confidential briefing. And so, industry expects to hear something here shortly. But nevertheless, they are laying the contractual groundwork. So once requirements are released, industry can start, chopping away at that. And Spaceport Company did receive one of those initial small contract awards.
Okay.
So, sorry, who did?
The Spaceport Company.
You guys got one of the small contracts. Okay.
That's right. That's right. Along with probably hundreds of other companies, so I don't want to blow it out of proportion. And I think it's like a $500 contract. It's a small contract, but it's the way the contracting works is you just need the contracting vehicle, and then they can add more money to it once they know, what the plan is. They'll issue task orders, and you can respond to the task orders.
Okay.
So it's sort of like preloading the contractual stuff as they get the plan ready. 99% of the time, we found that working with the Department of Defense, it's the paperwork that actually slows things down. I mean, the technology is hard. I don't want to, take anything away from the technologists. The technology is really hard, but the paperwork often takes just as much time, and so the government has learned their lesson, and they're trying to front load the paperwork to then give people to focus on the technology when the time is right.
Yeah,
which is smart. Yeah. It's good.
Okay, I just have something I want to know.
Sure.
It's not clear from what other stuff I've been reading. So, to get where you are now, to do the things you can do right now, with suborbital stuff, are you building a barge or an offshore platform?
We own a ship. We bought a ship from the Navy.
Okay.
It's a large boat, small ship. It's 180 foot long by 40 foot wide, former torpedo recovery vessel that we have modified to become a mobile missile launch pad. It's based down in Mississippi. We've done 5 launches to date. We have 3 more now on the books as of last week. We can launch up to a Standard Missile 3, so a 3,000 pound solid off the back. Typically what we do is a lot smaller than that. In the past, we have leased vessels that are lift boats, and then we have designs. The Defense Department has awarded us contracts, and we've completed designs to do orbital class boosters off of barges.
Okay.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
On the barge. Okay.
Excellent.
Because I know we've got a lot of experience now landing on barges. I just don't know if anybody's been taking off from a barge yet.
So the Chinese have been doing it for in the past 5 years. I've counted at least 19 orbital launches from barges in the ocean. So we're probably about 5 years behind the Chinese at this point.
I didn't know any of that.
Demonstrated at least 4 ships capable of doing very large boosters to orbit from the water, and they're about to complete a ship, a custom-made ship that has a 10,000-mile range. They'll be able to go anywhere on the high seas and do unmanned satellite launches from anywhere.
Okay.
So yeah, we're way behind the Chinese in this regard.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, as far as your own plans go down the road, when you expect to develop an orbital capacity, are you gonna stick with that model, or are you actually going to build a big platform offshore?
We're going to
Like
do what the customer wants us to do. The only reason we haven't built an orbital launch capability right now is because nobody has bought it from us yet. We spent the first 2 years of the company pitching it, going around, talking to it. Every single orbital launch provider out there has either said publicly, yes, we want to launch rockets at sea, like in the case of SpaceX, or they have privately told us, yes, we want to launch rockets at sea because we know we can't scale our operations with the current launch pads, including AJ Wallops. He had a question in the chat, why not use Wallops? We can get to that in a second. The short answer is Wallops is full. Wallops is a very tight
that was my
spot. It's on a
thought.
barrier island, and
Yep.
between Neutron, Electron, and MLV, which is the Firefly rocket, I think they call it Eclipse, and a bunch of sounding rocket pads, and eventually Neutron's landing pad.
Right. Yeah.
They're full. The inn is
There's nowhere
full.
to go.
Wallops is a great facility, but in order to expand that facility, they'd have to fill in a bunch of wetlands or expand up to the north. It's a very challenging environment to expand. So that's Wallops. Yeah, in terms of what architecture we would use to go orbital, we were asked by the Department of Defense asked us the same question, and we proposed an architecture based around initially barges. We love fixed leg platforms and mobile, jack up platforms like boats with big legs that extend down to the seabed and raise the whole thing out. We've launched from those before. They have pros and cons. We frankly like the Chinese model. We verified it ourselves. We did the designs. We did all the analyses. It's very cheap. Barges are ubiquitous. They're proven. They're stable. They're easy to fix. Right? They're an architecture. There are others proposing other more unproven, kind of elaborate, and architectures that frankly look cool on PowerPoint. But operating out at sea is extremely punishing. We've learned a lot of lessons actually going out and launching at sea. It's a very harsh environment, and you just want fewer things that can go wrong. So I'm all about the KISS principle. Right. And so we've built our architectures for orbital class on initially barges, and then eventually scaling up to freighters, like 900-foot long freighters. And then for really big stuff, you'd have customized fixed platforms. So like Starship, you'd have to have a fixed platform out at sea for something like that. It's just too big.
Well, then let's go back to something I talked about earlier, because I asked you about, will you build a big platform offshore or not for orbital, and the answer I got from you was kind of like, well, no one's offered to pay us to do that yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so given that the whole reason you're in business is to provide additional launch capacity that can't be had by anyone else,
that's right.
I would be amazed that the world isn't beating a path to your door right now.
Yeah,
what am I missing?
Like I said, we've had conversations with everybody who's starting an orbital launch company, almost everybody. That's not everybody, but all of the operational orbital companies have either reached out to us or made public pronouncements about they want to go out to sea. When we tell them how much it will actually cost, they're like, maybe we won't scale. It's a real problem. It's a real problem. They're wasting time and wasting money looking to go overseas or looking to, and so especially in the case of American companies, they'll spend a lot of time looking to go to places like, there are other launch pads around the world, this was part of my job at Astra, I can tell you the cheapest, easiest way is to put it on a barge and go out to sea, even though it's very expensive, right? The export control rules, the logistics, just the customs of getting your people and your stuff out of the United States is very, very, very challenging. There is a reason Rocket Lab onshored and became an American company.
Right.
They wanted to get those DoD contracts.
Right.
But DoD said, you got to find an American launch pad, right?
Yep.
And there have been instances of experimental NRO birds flying out of New Zealand. That's great. I think we should do more of that. They are a Five Eyes country, but going to someplace like Northern Europe or Brazil or India is going to be very, very problematic from an export control standpoint. And so a lot of these launch companies, like for example, Stoke is a great example.
Stoke raised $500 million, and they put a lot of it into spaceport. They did, right?
That pad down in Florida, what is it, LC-13? I forget what, LC-14?
It's Complex 14.
Yeah.
And they won the bid.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they spent, but it's really good that they decided to spend that money in the United States and not sink it into an unproven launch site.
Right.
I mean, and that's what it boils down to, Tom. At the end of the day, especially a new launch company that hasn't launched a rocket yet, it's very hard for them to justify to their investors taking a risk on a site that's not Vandenberg or Cape Canaveral. And in fact, we tell our customers, go launch it on land first before you go out to sea. It's a very, very tough environment to operate. The only time we've done unproven launch vehicles is when they're basically amateur rockets, like tiny one-stage solids, where it's kind of screwed up.
Since the nature of the problem you're trying to solve is we don't have enough capacity for all the demand, what is the demand right now that you've seen? What's the average wait time? What's the backlog? How long do you have to wait to get a pad in this country right now?
Okay, so to build a pad at Cape Canaveral, the wait is theoretically infinite. Okay, that's a punt of a question. There are no pads available to develop that are new, right? There you see this in.
And that was my question. How long?
Yeah.
We have pads.
But
we have vertical pads.
It's not really. I mean, you need the real estate, and so the way Florida and Cape Canaveral Spaceport Station is solving this problem is they are reinterpreting their risk rules. All right. The reason that the pads are spaced out as far as they are is there's a lot of analysis around blast effects in the case of a mishap, and they're saying, okay, as the rockets become more reliable, or if you operate under these constraints, they're kind of finding ways to accept more risk, quite frankly, in order to shove more capacity into that site. But the rockets are getting bigger, and they're changing propellants. They're going, methane is a much less well-known propellant than kerosene LOX. Methane LOX has not been used as often as kerosene LOX or even hydrogen LOX. And so, SpaceX is taking a big risk putting those Starship pads on 39A, and they want to put more in there. Now, SpaceX is kind of in a league of its own. They'll figure it out, but I think they're going to be a little bit delayed in scaling their operations as they work with the range there to understand the risk of simultaneous Starship operations. Now, that was the same thing with Falcon 9 10 years ago. Everybody said, "Oh, how are you going to have it'll never happen." And now it hardly ever makes the news. We have Falcon 9s happening every 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
That'll come with Starship, but it might take 10 years for that to come around. Okay?
Right.
And in the meantime, you're really only launching from Cape Canaveral. That's not what Starship is designed to do. Starship was designed, or intended at least, to launch from anywhere. And so Gwen Shotwell, Elon Musk, and the guy who's running the Falcon program now, I forget his name, have all said publicly, we know eventually we need to go out to sea. They bought a couple of oil rigs. What was that, 5 years ago?
Yeah, then they released them. They're like, this is too early.
They said, look, we got to fix the rocket, or we have to make the rocket work first, and then we'll go back to the oil rigs. They got a good deal on those rigs.
Yeah.
But they knew it was going to be several years before they were going to be able to actually use them with Starship. So they said, all right, forget it. They pulled a lot of equipment off of there. So they got their money's worth.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. They scrapped a lot of good stuff off of there, generators, pumps. My understanding is a lot of that equipment is still being used in Brownsville. Uh, but Brownsville as a site is a great R&D site for Starship, but it won't really scale operations there. The azimuth range is very narrow. They have to shoot the gap between Florida and Cuba. So to really scale operations and build out the Starlink constellation, and which is what Starship is really made to do, they need to move to Florida and get that wider azimuth range to hit more launch inclinations and satellite inclinations more efficiently.
Hold on, I never thought about that. So they have to thread the needle between Florida and Cuba. They can't overflight Cuba?
They can. The FAA doesn't like it, especially because it's kind of it's still an experimental vehicle.
Right.
So I believe to date, all of the Starship launches out of Texas have gone on the same inclination, and they do a dog leg kind of around Cuba. The Falcon 9 flies over Cuba all the time, all the time. But again, I was at the FAA when they asked for the first time to fly over Cuba, and that was at least 5 years into the Falcon program.
Okay.
It had already flown dozens of times by that point, successfully.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, they'll get there, but in the meantime, they're investing a lot of money in Florida for good reason. I don't know if I answered your question, Tom.
We got about 9 minutes left. I want to ask a couple things. We brought you on the show, I don't know, 2 months ago when there was talk about Maine. There's some other stuff. What are you able to talk about? Any progress? Any new things you want to update us on? Other things?
Sure.
It's a leading question that I don't want to if you're not ready to out anything, then don't. But I'm hoping you'll share some news.
So you have to ask Maine about Maine. I don't have anything to share with them. We're excited to help them scale their operations there. I know they're looking at horizontal, vertical, and offshore, so they're looking at the full gamut. Washington State, there's an industry group, an association that's talking about building a launch site or a spaceport. They have not yet made a siting decision. I don't know where it's going to go in Washington State. We have been in conversations with them. We fully support them. We're excited. Utah, I know, is looking at some sort of space launch capability. Stay tuned for that. They have not made any decisions there, but I mean,
would you use the Great Lake as a launch site?
There used to be a no, I don't think so. We would not put a boat out in Utah.
I mean, legit. It's a legit question. Would you put a boat out at the Great Salt Lake?
You'd have to ask them. I think that there used to be a military missile range. I think it was called Green River or something like that, Green Mountain. It was closed in the 80s. I think maybe it was bracked in the early 90s, something like that. Anyway, it's been closed for a long time. You'd have to ask Utah, but they've launched from Utah before. They've done some pretty heavy duty missile tests in the past there. Maybe what's old is new again. So there's still a lot of enthusiasm around spaceports. A lot of people don't understand what it takes to actually operationalize a spaceport. It's relatively easy to go get a spaceport license, but then to get the launch vehicle license to actually launch from your spaceport is a next step that's pretty tricky. That said, there are several spaceports in the U.S. that have never had a launch, will never had a launch, but they're great economic development drivers. City of Houston Spaceport, Ellington Field, they'll never have a launch there. They employ thousands of people. Intuitive Machines is there. Axiom Space is there. A couple of other big companies are there. Makes a ton of money for the city. Very successful. Spaceport. Actually, I don't even have to use air quotes. It is an FAA spaceport. Launch. So there's other ways to make money in space, in the spaceport industry, beyond launch.
So I know you've said to me and publicly several times, you're not the ocean spaceport business. You are the spaceport company. So
Right.
Would you build a on the ground spaceport
We would
in
love to.
Utah,
Absolutely.
Maine, or
Yeah.
Washington? Yeah.
But I'm in the business of actually launching rockets, right? Like,
Right.
so if somebody came to me and said, hey, I want to do essentially a spaceport that's just a business park, kind of like Houston, I'd say, cheer you on, love it, all about making money, but that's not really what I'm interested in. I want to actually launch rockets.
Right. Okay.
And the problem with building more operational orbital spaceports on land is essentially there's a lot of risk aversion. I mean, the rockets are bombs that we light on fire and shoot through the air. They still blow up a lot, even though the reliability has increased. And they're really loud. Rockets are really, really, really loud. They're never not going to be loud.
Right.
Like Starship is a very, very loud vehicle. It's going to be tough to launch that thing on a cloudy day with blast overpressure.
Yeah, and you don't want that thing too close to I-80. Going through there to
Yeah.
scare the hell out of all the
You don't want it too
tourists.
close to anything. You don't want it close to anything. And
Yeah.
so until people are willing to adopt more risk and tolerate like super loud things, maybe breaking their windows on a regular basis, it's going to be hard to scale up rocket activity. That's why it's likely to move, offshore. It doesn't have to be 1,000 miles offshore, 30, 40 miles offshore. That's plenty. So
Yeah.
I will share some news that we haven't shared anywhere else. This is breaking news, so this is exclusive to this podcast.
You heard it here first, folks.
You heard it here first. Spaceport Company has been awarded a contract last week with a major defense prime. I can't tell you who yet, but you've all heard of the company. It is an enormous company to conduct operations offshore, testing operations. So we're really excited about this. Yeah, it's a big opportunity for us. So stay tuned. We'll come back in a couple months after the operation has been complete. It will happen very, very soon in the very near future. And so hopefully we'll be able to share some pictures and video and tell you the name.
Wow. Congrats. That's exciting.
Great. It's a big deal, and it's not huge dollars, but it's a major vote of confidence, right? Yeah. The Spaceport Company was the only organization that had the physical assets, the ship, the regulatory fluency, the ability to go get the approvals they needed to go do things, and the operational flexibility, the ability to, I was called on Tuesday, we signed the contract by Friday.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Super fast. And nobody else could do that. So we offer a capability that's in a weird little niche, but it's clearly something that's needed. And so we're really, really excited. And like I said, I'll come back in a couple months to be able to tell you some more.
Okay.
Terrific. Congratulations to you and your team.
Thanks.
Well, of course, it went so fast because, this is two private sector companies trying to do a deal.
Right.
This is not a Space Act agreement, so yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and I mean, the Defense Department or Department of War, like, they're trying to get better. They are getting better. I have seen them get better in the past almost 4 years of doing this, but it's still it's still not nearly as fast as two private sector organizations saying, all right, we're good. Boom, the contract over. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Good. Good.
So.
All right. Well, definitely tell us more. When should we schedule you for the next show?
After the New Year.
Yeah.
After the New Year. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do that. Right on.
Okay, we'll do that. That sounds like a lot of fun. And on that, Tom Marotta, CEO of the Spaceport Company, it's always fun talking to you, and you had a lot of good things to say, and thank you for being here. And we're certainly going to have you back again. This has been great.
Love that.
Thanks so much. Stick around. Oh yeah, that was a good night back. I'm glad.
I liked how he snuck in the news at he knew this minute the show was like, oh, we're ending. Let me just drop this little nugget in, and we'll
perfect
cliffhanger for the next show. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't wait now. Everybody's going to be with bated breath waiting for the next announcement. But that's okay. We have a lot of things going on to fill that time between now and then. Now, obviously, Thursday's Thanksgiving Day. You should all be with your families. And don't listen to us. We'll probably have a rerun. It'll probably or not. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see what happens. If it is, it'll be one of the better ones. You know, to kind of say one of the better ones we did this year. And you can see that. One of these days we should have a day where we just play stuff all afternoon. Does that have a marathon
Right.
like the big guys do?
Right,
Twilight
right.
Zone all day, you know.
Right.
But anyway, a week from today, Monday, December 1st, same bat time, same bat channel, 8 p.m. Eastern. Our guest will be none other than the NASA and COTS legend, Dennis Stone. This
Cool.
is going to be absolutely amazing
Right.
because this is the guy who ran COTS back in the day. We're going to talk about how the future was actually initially built and what it took to do it, because he was right in the middle of it. He knows it all. He knows where the bodies are buried.
Yeah.
It's going to be absolutely amazing. And of course, from that, we're going to be able to talk about all the lessons learned from that for space development today. That's going to be absolutely outstanding. And I just can't wait to do that show. 1 week from tonight, right here from the center, the news desk at the Center for Space Commerce and Finance for Michael Lane and Sean Key. My name is Thomas Andrew Olson. Keep watching the skies.